Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. So, you ever open up an app on your phone and just stare at it thinking, how in the world did they build this? It honestly feels like magic, right? Well, it turns out there's a really solid method behind all that magic, and it's probably a lot simpler than you think.
No, really, think about it for a second. You've got these incredibly detailed tools in your pocket that can do almost anything. They have all these different features that somehow work together perfectly. So how does a team of people go from just an idea to a finished product like that? Well, the secret is that it's not one giant heroic leap.
And that right there, that is the entire secret. You don't try to tackle the whole messy, complicated thing all at once. I mean, you'd go crazy. Instead, you just focus on building the little parts, one piece at a time. And that one simple shift in thinking, it changes absolutely everything.
Now, this whole strategy has a name, and it's basically the secret handshake for engineers, developers, pretty much anyone trying to build something big. It's called system decomposition, and it's how we take a problem that feels overwhelming and turn it into something we can actually handle. The name sounds a little technical, I know, but the idea is just so simple. You take a big, scary system and you decompose it. You just break it down. And you keep breaking it into smaller and smaller chunks until all you have left is a pile of simple, easy-to-solve little problems. It's not about being a genius who can see the whole picture at once. It's about being a strategist who knows how to take the picture apart. And the process itself, it's really just 3 logical steps. First, you look at the whole thing, the entire forest. Then you identify the main components, the individual trees. And finally, you zoom in on those and break them down into the smallest possible tasks, the branches and the leaves. It's just a simple flow from big and vague to small and specific. All right, let's actually see how this works. Okay, so we're going to take an app that pretty much all of us have on our phones, a basic alarm clock. It seems simple enough, but once we pop the hood, you'll see it's a perfect little system that's built out of a bunch of even smaller parts.
So this is our starting point. This is the big idea, alarm app. Now, if we tried to build that whole concept at once, where would you even start? You wouldn't. So using what we just learned, what's our very first move? We break it down.
And boom, here we go. Right away, we can see the main jobs or subsystems it needs to do. An alarm app has to let you set an alarm. It has to check the time. It obviously needs to sound the alarm. And you got to be able to turn it on or off. Each one of these is a separate piece of the puzzle. See? The project already feels way less intimidating, right? But here's the fun part. We don't have to stop there. I mean, each of these subsystems is still its own little mini project. So we can use the exact same strategy and break them down even further into really specific bite-sized tasks. Let's just take the sound alarm part. What does that really mean in practice? Well, a programmer needs to write a bit of code for a specific task, like play this sound file for exactly 2 minutes. And then they need another little chunk of code that's always listening for the user to hit off or snooze. Just like that, we've gone from a general idea to a concrete to-do list. And it's the same story for every other part. The set alarm subsystem, well, that needs a task that lets a user actually pick a time from a clock face. All of a sudden, instead of one giant terrifying project called Build an Alarm App, we've got a simple checklist of little things to do, like make a time picker and play a sound. Totally doable. Now, this whole approach isn't just about making things easier to build from the start. It has another superpower. It makes things way easier to fix. When something breaks in a giant tangled system, finding the bug can be a total nightmare. But not if you built it in pieces. Because each piece is its own little self-contained module, you can test it all by itself. You don't have to fire up the entire application just to check if the snooze button works. You can just test the snooze button. For quality and for finding bugs, this is an absolute game changer. And this is pretty much how that testing works. You take one little component and you throw things at it. You give it the input it expects, like 7 a.m., and you make sure it works. Success. But then you throw it a curveball. What if some other part of the app accidentally sends it the letter X? A well-built piece will just say, nope, that's not a time, and spit out an error instead of letting the whole app crash. That kind of targeted testing is only really possible when your pieces are small. So we've seen how this all works for a little app. But the real magic of decomposition is that it's not just for software.
It's like a universal blueprint for dealing with any kind of complex problem.
So here's the bottom line. Breaking things down makes them easier to build, easier to manage, and way easier to test. Plus, it means you can have a whole team of people all working on different parts at the same time, which is how massive projects actually get finished. But maybe most importantly, it takes a goal that feels impossibly huge and transforms it into a series of small, achievable steps.
And I want to be clear, this isn't just some nifty trick to have in your back pocket. It is the fundamental method for solving complex problems. It doesn't matter if you're starting a business, writing a novel, or even trying to learn a new language. The principle is always the same. Start with a big idea and then just break it down and down and down until you can see a clear path forward.
And that kind of brings us to the final thought here. Just for a second, forget about apps and code. Think about your own life. What's that one big, intimidating thing on your to-do list that feels completely overwhelming? Maybe it's not so impossible after all. Maybe you just haven't found the pieces yet.